tonight.
We have to simplify our code. We have to bring down taxes, but we have to simplify our code, Steve. It's too complicated.
Donald Trump is starting to explain key policy positions.
We go in, we knock the hell out of them, take the oil, we thereby take their wealth.
The Republican presidential frontrunner is here to share even more details.
Well, the biggest problem I have with Planned Parenthood is the abortion situation.
Hannity starts right here, right now.
And welcome to Hannity. The race for 2016 is in full swing, and despite taking criticism from almost every direction, Donald Trump has seen a remarkable rise in the polls, driving him to the top of the crowded GOP field. Now, earlier, I had a chance to sit down with Donald Trump. Take a look. Mr. Trump, great to see you again. How are you?
Thank you.
All right, let's start with the elephant in the room. The Fox issue is resolved, and how did that come about?
Well, I have a great relationship with Roger Ailes, and actually I didn't understand what went wrong because I felt it wasn't really, I was not treated fairly, and Roger called me the other day, and it's absolutely fine.
Let's go to the polls. Two new polls out today. One shows you up in Iowa. Another shows you up in New Hampshire by a pretty significant margin. You had a poll yesterday that showed you up in Iowa. National polls, you went up in the NBC poll. All post-debate. What do you make of that? Why
well, I think I won the debate. I mean, everybody tells me I won the debate. They did polls of the debate itself, and I was in the 60s and 70 percentages, and I think that I won the debate. I love doing it in a certain way. I will say this for the last time. I don't think I was treated fairly, but these are minor details. I really had a good time doing it. It was very interesting. I've never done a debate before like that. My life has been a debate, but I've never done officially a debate. And it was really great. I got to know the candidates, and I got to like some of them a lot. I think they're terrific people, and others probably not as much, but that's the way life goes.
You seem to be defying political gravity, if you will. A lot of people predicted after the immigration comment, oh, that's the end of Donald Trump, or the McCain comment, or any of the controversies, and the opposite happens. The polls go up, they don't go down. How do you explain that?
Well, if you look at the immigration, it was illegal immigration, and that was my comment, and the media really covered me incorrectly. They talked about Mexican, they talked about, I mean, they almost made things up. But my real comment was illegal immigration, and that turned out to be a big factor. And then you had, sadly, the killing of Kate in San Francisco, which was horrendous, with somebody that came into the country not once but 5 times.
Illegally.
And illegally, totally illegally. And just last night and yesterday you had a horrible killing where, same thing with the illegal, where a 66-year-old woman who was raped from the military, who was raped and beaten and tortured by this animal. And all of a sudden, you know, people are seeing these horrible crimes that are being committed by illegal.
642,000 crimes
it's terrible.
in Texas alone since 2008.
And that whole issue, I don't think you'd even be discussing it right now if it wasn't for me. So people realize I was right. And people that you would never think called me and apologized for what they said. So that worked out. I mean, unfortunately, they haven't solved the problem. But in terms of myself, people said he called it right. The McCain, I equate that with the vets, because John McCain and the establishment in Washington has treated the vets so badly. You know, 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, they had the longest wait in the history of the Veterans Administration. If you're waiting for a doctor, they waited for a longer period of time. And I'm talking about days. You know, you go to a doctor, you wait for 20 minutes, you're upset, right?
Right.
They're waiting days and days, sometimes 6 days, 7 days. In one case, they waited 5 days, and we finally got to a doctor. He said, I'm sorry, I'm going on vacation now. We can't let this happen to the vets. And I equate John McCain with the vets because he's been, you know, one of the people in charge, and he's done a very poor job. And the last incident we won't even discuss, but I think that I didn't say anything wrong.
Let me ask you, you keep talking about leverage as it relates to the third party issue. Let's assume you're treated fairly in the process. You didn't win the nomination. At that point, you would support the Republican candidate.
That's true. That's true. Now, I'd also like to see a candidate that I like and that I respect and that I agree with, okay? I'd never go to the other side.
Who are the people you respect?
Well, I don't want to go into that because I'm running against them. And frankly, the ones that I most respect, in certain cases, they have, you know, they have a little bit of a chance. I don't think a great chance because their poll numbers aren't so great right now. But I do respect numerous of the candidates. And actually, some I've gotten to know and, you know, I like them and I respect them.
Hillary said your comments about women were offensive. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think I'll do more for women. I cherish women. I think I'll do more for women than Hillary can ever do. I think that I will take care. You know, I thought Jeb Bush made a horrible mistake when he blew the whole situation on women's health, you know, the women's health issue. A week ago, what he said was just unbelievable. Essentially, he's saying, I'm not going to fund it. And I think that will go down as Jeb Bush's 47%. The 47% to Romney, where probably cost him the election when he said that. He didn't know he was saying it, and it was a mistake, and it was too bad, but that probably cost him the election. I think Jeb's statement on women's health from a few days ago will go down as his 47%. I don't think you can recover from a statement. Then he goes back and he says he misspoke. Well, it was pretty late.
Let me ask you this. Hillary Clinton, her husband, has had all these problems with women. She hasn't said a word. If it's you versus Hillary, that fair game, that issue?
I guess it is. Look, he would have had a much different presidency if he didn't have Monica and all of these things that happened during his...
Well, there was more than Monica. It was Kathleen Willey, it was Paula Jones, it was Juanita Broderick. And
so I guess it is. If anything, they probably won't be doing too much talking about it, but certainly it's fair game. I guess anything's fair game. If what I said the other day is fair game, and I said nothing wrong, I didn't even conclude the sentence, and, you know, they're just sort of... I said you have to be a deviant to take what I said and put it into that.
Let me move to this, though. The Clinton Foundation, of which Hillary's a part, they took money from countries like the UAE, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. Women can't even drive.
Right.
I can't find a comment where she's been critical of Saudi Arabia. If she's going to say your comments are outrageous, what do you say back about her taking the money from a country that treats women horribly?
I understand it, and you know what? If you're going to take the money from even countries that treat horribly, in all fairness, I'm not defending anything, and she took money from me too. I gave money also to the Clinton Foundation, and I did it because I'm a businessman, and I want to have access. I need access. Don't forget, Sean, until 3 months ago, I was a world-class businessman. I built a great company, some of the most iconic assets in the world. 10 billion of net worth, more than 10 billion of net worth, and frankly, I had a great time doing it, and I wouldn't mind continuing, except I see the country going so badly. And the only reason I even mention that now is that's the kind of thinking, whether it's good or bad or whatever it is, but that's the kind of thinking that the country needs. We owe $19 trillion, going up rapidly. We have a country that's in collapse. We're going to have a problem like you've never seen. Once we get over that $21, $22 trillion mark, we're going to have a problem. And I'm really good at that stuff. And I know my competition, and they're not good at it. They wouldn't have a clue.
But do you think that the Clinton Foundation, when Hillary takes money from Saudi Arabia or these countries that treat women horribly, and then she's going to lecture you on comments you make about women, is that hypocrisy?
I think it probably turned out to be maybe not the right thing. Now, if you took that money, look, in all defense of her in this case, if she took that money and used it really for the good, but a lot of that money was used on private transportation.
Did they buy her silence? In other words, she hasn't been critical of them. She took the money for the foundation.
Well, you had not only that. How about the speeches, where you're getting millions and millions of dollars for speeches for companies, and some of these companies are not companies that really have the good of the United States at hand. So you can go outside of the foundation. I mean, to me, I look at the speech money, certainly the foundation money. Now, the foundation money is interesting because a lot of that money was used on private jet fare. That's a lot of money.
A lot of money per hour.
Yeah, I mean, private jets cost a lot of money. But when you look at the speeches and you add that to the foundations, and there's no question in my mind that certain of those things led to absolute approvals on other things, because she was Secretary of State. So that gets to be a very dangerous business. And then now you add the email scandal, because to me the email scandal is, hey, General Petraeus, for doing a tiny fraction of what she did, his life is destroyed. He's been ruined.
They found 4 classified emails. She said there weren't any, and that's only out of 40, and there's 60,000 emails total. Do you think she committed a crime?
I think she committed a crime. The problem that let's say everybody has in terms of finding out, you have Democrats are all the prosecutors, and they don't want to prosecute it. Did she commit a crime? Yes. Will they prosecute it? Perhaps no.
You were stunningly honest when you said, I give Hillary money, I know she'll take my call. Or Nancy Pelosi, I give her money, I'll take my call.
As a businessman.
So when the Saudis give her money, and all these other countries gave money,
yeah,
were they buying access to her?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. They were buying access.
So our system's really corrupt.
It's a bad thing. And I say that all the time. I say, hey, nobody knows the system better than I do, because I was on the other side of the system at the highest level. And people would come up, senators, speakers. I had people come up to my office, the biggest people in the world, and that say money. Now, let me put it differently, and I discussed this with you before. I say absolutely. I'm a businessman. Republican, I'm a conservative, but I'm a businessman. Let's say I say, no, I'm not going to give you anything. Congratulations, you're doing a wonderful job. The answer is no. Now, 2 years later, I go up to see them in Washington and I need an approval for something. They're not going to give me the approval. And let me tell you something. That's a corrupt system. That's a bad system. When that happens, that's a bad system. When Jeb Bush raises $114 million, which he has, when Hillary raises $60 million, which he has, I know the people that gave him the money. These are not the nicest people in the world.
This system is, at its root, corrupt.
Well, Jeb Bush is totally controlled by the people that gave him that money. And the nice part about me, I don't want anybody's money.
You have
I don't want any money.
$345 million in liquid assets. Are you prepared to spend that much money
Sure.
or more?
Well, you saw my income. My income's $400 million a year.
But are you prepared to spend it?
Sure, I would spend it if I'm doing well. Yeah. If I was in a position like, let's say, Senator, I mean, look, I don't want to use names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but the two guys, you know what's interesting? Lindsey Graham hit me harder than anybody. He's got 0. Perry hit me harder than anybody. Those were the two. And Perry was at 4 or 5, and he went down to 2 and went down to nothing, and now I guess he's out of the campaign. I think he's a nice guy, actually. I think he's just doing it. But what was interesting is the two people that hit me really hard. I mean, Perry went to Washington to make a speech about me. It wasn't nice, okay? I mean, it wasn't a nice speech. And he went from 4 or 5 down to 2 and didn't even make the debate stage. Lindsey Graham was at 2 and he went to nothing. So I'm really very honored by that.
And coming up, Donald Trump will explain how he will get Mexico to pay for the border wall if he is the next president of the United States. Plus, does he think Planned Parenthood should be defunded? His answer may surprise you. That's next. Stay with us.